The storm before the calm. The streets of Manhattan were cloaked in a damp haze as the morning drizzle soaked the city's towering skyline. Among the bustling crowd, a sleek black SUV came to a halt in front of one of New York's most prestigious corporate headquarters. Barron Trump stepped out, his 6'7" frame cloaked in a tailored overcoat, shielding him from the persistent rain. His composed demeanor masked the significance of his visit, a charity meeting that had taken weeks of preparation. Barron was no stranger to public scrutiny. Born into a family constantly under the microscope, he had grown adept at walking the fine line between recognition and anonymity. However, today wasn't about his last name or the shadows it cast. It was about a cause that resonated deeply with him. Raising funds for underprivileged students, an initiative inspired by his mother's unwavering belief in the transformative power of education. As Barron approached the glimmering glass doors of the headquarters, a burly security guard intercepted him. The guard's uniform, crisp and imposing, matched his no-nonsense demeanor. "Excuse me, sir," the guard said, his tone sharp. "Do you have an appointment?" Barron adjusted his stance, offering a polite nod. "Yes, I believe my name is on the list. Barron Trump." The guard's eyebrows rose slightly, but not in recognition. He glanced at his clipboard, scanning the names with deliberate slowness. After a moment, he shook his head. "Not here. You'll need to step aside." Barron's calm expression didn't falter, though a pang of disappointment pricked at his resolve. The rain intensified, its icy droplets soaking through his coat. He stepped back gracefully, allowing others to pass. Around him, murmurs began to ripple through the growing crowd. "Isn't that Trump's kid?" a woman whispered to her companion. "Looks like he's not as important as he thinks," came the sardonic reply. Barron heard every word. He could feel the weight of their judgments, their eyes lingering on him as if he were an exhibit in a museum. Yet he refused to let anger or frustration surface. Instead, he responded with a quiet smile, a stark contrast to the tension surrounding him. The guard, seemingly annoyed by Barron's composure, barked, "You need to move along, kid. We're running a tight ship here." "Of course," Barron said, stepping further to the side. His voice remained steady, his demeanor unshaken. Internally, however, he couldn't ignore the growing sense of unease. He had been looking forward to this meeting, believing it was an opportunity to make a genuine difference. Now he stood in the rain, relegated to the sidelines. Minutes turned into an hour. Every attempt Barron made to contact the event organizers was met with silence. His calls went straight to voicemail, and his messages remained unanswered. The drizzle turned into a downpour, leaving him drenched. Still, he stayed. His resolve was unyielding. This was more than a meeting. It was a test of character. An older man with a frayed umbrella approached him. "You all right, son?" the man asked, his voice tinged with concern. Barron nodded, offering a faint smile. "I'm fine, thank you." "You don't look fine," the man replied. "Why don't you step into that cafe over there? Get out of the rain." "I appreciate the offer," Barron said, "but I need to stay here." The man shook his head, muttering under his breath about the stubbornness of youth before walking away. Barron watched him go, the warmth of the man's concern lingering. Yet, he remained steadfast. Leaving wasn't an option, not when the cause mattered so deeply to him. Across the street, a young girl pointed her phone at him, capturing the image of a soaked yet resolute figure. Within minutes, the photo began circulating online. Comments flooded in, some sympathetic, others scathing. Barron Trump denied entry. "About time he gets treated like the rest of us," one post read. "Looks like privilege doesn't buy everything," another sneered. Barron scrolled through the comments, each one cutting deeper than the last. He took a steadying breath, reminding himself of the lessons his mother had taught him. "Kindness is a choice," she often said, "especially when the world is unkind to you." The sound of an argument nearby pulled him from his thoughts. The security guard was engaged in a heated exchange with a well-dressed man who appeared to be an executive. "I told you," "He's not on the list," the guard said, his voice tinged with frustration. The executive glanced at Barron, his gaze filled with skepticism. "This doesn't look good for you, kid. Just leave." Barron met the man's gaze calmly. "I'm not here for appearances," he replied evenly. The executive smirked. "Then you're wasting your time." But Barron didn't see it that way. Every minute he spent outside the building was a lesson in resilience, in understanding human nature. He was observing, learning, and growing in ways he hadn't anticipated. Hours passed, and the rain showed no signs of relenting. Barron's stomach growled, a sharp reminder that he hadn't eaten since breakfast. Across the street, the scent of freshly baked pretzels wafted through the air. He watched as a young boy purchased one from a vendor. To his surprise, the boy crossed the street and held the pretzel out to him. "You look hungry," the boy said shyly. Barron crouched to the boy's level, a genuine smile lighting up his face. "Thank you," he said warmly. "What's your name?" "Liam," the boy replied. Barron ruffled Liam's hair gently. "You have a good heart, Liam." The moment was small, yet it restored a flicker of hope in Barron. It reminded him that kindness often came from unexpected places, and that even in the face of adversity, there was always light to be found. As the hours dragged on, news outlets began picking up the story. Headlines ranged from "Barron Trump denied entry," a power play, to "the name that couldn't open doors." The whispers around him grew louder, the crowd more curious. Some mocked him openly, while others simply watched, waiting to see what he would do next. Through it all, Barron remained rooted to the spot, his determination unshaken. He wasn't here for validation or recognition. He was here for the students who depended on this charity, for the opportunities they deserved. No amount of rain, ridicule, or rejection would deter him. Finally, as the day began to wane, the corporate assistant emerged, her expression a mix of irritation and guilt. "You're still here?" she asked, her tone sharp. "I'm waiting for the charity meeting," Barron replied evenly. "They're busy," she said dismissively. "You should leave." Barron studied her face, noticing the flicker of unease in her eyes. "Is there a reason I'm being kept out?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. She hesitated before whispering, "Some people think your presence will overshadow the cause." Barron's heart sank. This wasn't about protocol. It was prejudice. His name, a double-edged sword, had once again become a barrier rather than a bridge. But he refused to give up. Sitting on a nearby bench, the rain pooling around him, Barron pulled out his phone. If he couldn't get inside, he'd find another way to support the cause. His fingers hovered over the screen as he drafted an email, each word fueled by his unwavering resolve. This was only the beginning. A choice to rise. The rain showed no signs of easing as Barron sat on the cold bench outside the towering corporate headquarters. His soaked overcoat clung to him like a second skin, but he barely noticed the discomfort. His mind raced, replaying the assistant's whispered confession. "Some people think your presence will overshadow the cause." The words cut deep. It wasn't just a denial of entry. It was a rejection of his identity. For years, Barron had worked to step out of the shadow of his family name, to be seen for who he was rather than the headlines that surrounded him. Yet here he was, judged not by his actions, but by the weight of his last name. Barron inhaled deeply, letting the cold, rain-soaked air fill his lungs. Giving up was not an option. He thought of the students he was trying to help, kids who didn't have the privileges he had been born into. Kids who needed someone to fight for them. If he walked away now, what message would that send? That adversity was reason enough to abandon a cause. That standing up for something wasn't worth the discomfort. No, he wouldn't let this setback define him. An unexpected ally. As Barron stared at his phone, drafting an email to the charity's board, he heard the sound of heels clicking rapidly against the wet pavement. A young woman, clutching a large umbrella, stopped in front of him. She was in her late 20s, her sharp navy blue suit hinting at her role as someone who mattered inside the building. "You're Barron Trump, right?" she asked, her tone cautious but curious. Barron stood, offering a polite nod. "I am." The woman looked around, as if ensuring no one was watching. "I'm Emily Carter, a junior associate here. I saw the commotion earlier." She hesitated, then added, "I also know about the meeting. My team is working on the charity's media strategy." Barron raised an eyebrow. "Then you know why I'm here." Emily sighed. "I do. And I also know they're not going to let you in. It's not fair, but that's the reality." Barron's jaw tightened, but he kept his tone measured. "Do you believe I'd overshadow the cause?" "No," Emily said firmly. "I think it's an excuse. Some people in there just don't want to deal with the attention your name brings. They're afraid of controversy, afraid it'll distract from the charity's mission." Barron nodded slowly. "So what do you suggest I do? Walk away?" Emily hesitated. "No, I think you should prove them wrong. They don't want you in there because they think you'll overshadow the cause. Show them that you don't need to be in the room to make an impact." Barron's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "How?" Emily glanced at her phone. "The charity meeting is being live-streamed for transparency. It's private, but I can share the link with you. If you want people to hear your message, you don't need their permission to speak." A flicker of determination lit in Barron's eyes. "Thank you, Emily." She handed him a card with her contact information. "If anyone asks, I didn't help you." A bold move. Barron found a quieter spot nearby, taking refuge under the awning of a small cafe. He opened the link Emily had sent him and watched as the meeting unfolded on his phone. Executives and board members sat around a polished table, discussing budgets, goals, and strategies. The conversation was well-intentioned, but lacked the passion that had driven Barron to this cause. He knew he had to act. Barron opened his social media account, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. He had always been hesitant to use his platform. It felt too easy, too performative. But this wasn't about him. It was about amplifying the voices of those the charity aimed to help. He began typing, his words carefully chosen. "Today, I was denied entry to a meeting for a cause I deeply believe in. But this isn't about me. It's about the students who are counting on us to fight for their futures. To those inside that room, I don't need a seat at the table to stand for what's right. Let's focus on the real issue, giving every child a chance to succeed." He attached the charity's donation link, along with a photo of himself standing in the rain. Within minutes, the post began to gain traction. Likes, shares, and comments poured in, many praising his resilience, others critiquing the situation. "Barron Trump shows true leadership," one comment read. "This is what privilege should look like, using your platform to help others," another added. Barron didn't dwell on the praise. He wasn't doing this for validation. His focus remained on the cause. The ripple effect. As Barron's post went viral, donations began flooding into the charity. The live-stream chat exploded with questions about why he wasn't in the room, forcing the organizers to address the issue. One of the board members, visibly uncomfortable, finally spoke up. "There's been a misunderstanding," she said, her tone defensive. "We appreciate Barron Trump's interest in our cause. Unfortunately, today's meeting was restricted to internal stakeholders." The response only fueled the public's curiosity and ire. Social media users began tagging the charity, demanding answers. The pressure was mounting, and it wasn't long before the charity issued a formal statement. "We deeply regret the misunderstanding that occurred earlier today. Barron Trump's commitment to our cause is invaluable, and we are grateful for his efforts to raise awareness and support." A moment of reflection. As night fell, Barron sat in his hotel room, watching the chaos unfold online. The day had been exhausting, both physically and emotionally. Yet, despite the obstacles, he felt a sense of accomplishment. He had stayed true to his values, choosing action over indignation, humility over ego. His phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "Check the donation total." Barron clicked the link she provided. His eyes widened as he saw the number. Donations had tripled since his post, with comments flooding in from people inspired by his story. Many mentioned how they had overlooked the charity until now, admitting that his actions had drawn them to the cause. For the first time that day, a genuine smile spread across Barron's face. It wasn't about him. It never had been. It was about the students whose futures now looked a little brighter because of the collective effort of strangers moved by a single moment of resilience. The next step. The following morning, Barron received a call from the charity's director. The woman's voice was tinged with remorse. "Barron, I'd like to apologize for what happened yesterday. It was unfair, and I take full responsibility. We'd be honored if you would join us at our next event." Barron paused, his mind racing. The offer was tempting, but he had already learned that his impact wasn't confined to a boardroom. "Thank you," he said finally, "but I think I can do more for the cause by continuing to amplify it from the outside." The director seemed surprised but grateful. "We'd still love to work with you in any capacity." Barron hung up, a sense of purpose filling him. He realized that his power lay not in forcing his way into spaces that resisted him, but in creating spaces where his voice could inspire and uplift. The storm had tested him, but in rising above it, he had found his strength. This was only the beginning, a line in the sand. The morning after his post went viral, Barron Trump awoke to the sunlight filtering through the sheer curtains of his hotel room. The city buzzed outside, but his mind was already consumed by the fallout from the previous day. His phone was alive with notifications, texts, emails, and mentions from social media. The charity had reached out again. The news outlets wanted interviews, and even a few detractors had shifted their tone, acknowledging his resilience. Barron sighed, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. He wasn't interested in the attention. The cause was still at the forefront of his mind. The rain from yesterday had long since stopped, but the storm of public interest was only beginning. An unlikely partnership. Barron's day began with an unexpected visit. As he sipped his morning coffee, there was a knock at the door. When he opened it, he found Emily Carter, the junior associate who had secretly sent him the live stream link the day before. She held a folder and wore a determined expression. "Good morning," she greeted, stepping inside before he could protest. "I came to talk strategy." Barron raised an eyebrow, setting his coffee down. "Strategy for what?" Emily placed the folder on the table and flipped it open to reveal a series of charts, headlines, and screenshots. "You've created a ripple effect, Barron. The donations, the social media buzz, the charity's public apology. It's all because you didn't back down. But now you need to decide what comes next." Barron leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "I didn't do this for the attention, Emily." "I know," she said, meeting his gaze. "But attention can be a tool if you use it wisely. The question is, are you ready to take this further?" Barron frowned, unsure. "What do you mean by further?" Emily tapped on one of the charts. "You've highlighted an important issue. How prejudice and bias can hinder even the best intentions. This isn't just about one charity meeting. It's about changing perceptions, creating opportunities, and pushing for systemic change." Barron's eyes flickered with interest. "And how do you propose I do that?" Emily smiled. "By building your own platform, not just on social media, but through real, tangible actions. Partner with like-minded organizations, host events, amplify underrepresented voices. You've already started something. Now it's time to build on it." Barron nodded slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. "You're suggesting I turn this moment into a movement." "Exactly," Emily said. "And I can help you." A plan takes shape. Over the next several hours, Emily and Barron brainstormed ideas. They discussed hosting workshops for underprivileged students, collaborating with educational institutions, and creating scholarships for promising young minds. Barron insisted on one key principle. The focus had to remain on the cause, not his name. "I don't want this to become about me," he said firmly. "I want it to be about the kids who need these opportunities." Emily nodded. "Understood. But your name can open doors that would otherwise stay closed. You can use it to shine a light on these issues." Reluctantly, Barron agreed. He realized that while his name came with baggage, it also came with influence, an invaluable resource for the work ahead. Challenges and opposition. As Barron and Emily finalized their plans, word spread about their initiative. Some praised the effort, calling it a step in the right direction. Others, however, were less kind. Social media trolls resurfaced, accusing Barron of using philanthropy as a means of self-promotion. Headlines oscillated between admiration and skepticism. Barron Trump's new mission, genuine cause, or PR stunt. The young Trump trying to prove he's different. Barron tried to ignore the noise, but the criticism gnawed at him. He found solace in the messages of support from students, parents, and educators who resonated with his efforts. One email, in particular, stood out. It was from a high school senior named Mia. A personal connection. Mia's email was heartfelt and raw. "Dear Mr. Trump, my name is Mia, and I'm a senior at Lincoln High. I read about what happened to you outside the charity meeting, and I wanted to say thank you. Not because you're famous, but because you stood up for something that matters. People like me, kids who grow up in neighborhoods where opportunities are scarce. We need people like you to fight for us. I've always dreamed of going to college, but my family can't afford it. I've worked hard, but sometimes it feels like the world is stacked against me. When I saw your post, it gave me hope. It made me believe that maybe, just maybe, someone out there cares. Thank you for not giving up, even when it would have been easier to walk away. You inspire people like me to keep trying. Sincerely, Mia Rodriguez." Barron read the email twice, then a third time. It reminded him why he had stayed in the rain, why he had endured the ridicule, and why he couldn't let this moment pass without creating lasting change. He wrote back immediately. "Dear Mia, thank you for your kind words. Your story reminds me why this work is so important. You have a bright future ahead, and I want to do everything I can to help make sure students like you have the opportunities you deserve. Please stay in touch. I'd love to hear more about your dreams and goals. Best regards, Barron." First steps. Motivated by Mia's email, Barron and Emily launched their first initiative, the Open Future Project. It was a program designed to provide scholarships, mentorships, and resources for underprivileged students. Within days of announcing it, donations poured in from around the globe. Companies offered partnerships, educators volunteered as mentors, and students like Mia began applying for scholarships. But not everyone was supportive. Critics continued to question Barron's motives, and some organizations hesitated to collaborate, fearing backlash from associating with the Trump name. Barron faced these challenges head-on. He reached out to doubters personally, sharing his vision and emphasizing the project's mission. Some remained unconvinced, but many were won over by his sincerity and determination. The first event, the Open Future Project's inaugural event, was held in a community center in the Bronx. The modest venue was packed with students, parents, educators, and supporters. Barron took the stage, his tall frame imposing but his voice steady and sincere. "Thank you all for being here today," he began. "This isn't about me. It's about the incredible potential in this room, the dreams, the ambitions, and the determination of students who deserve every opportunity to succeed." He shared Mia's story, with her permission, as an example of why the project mattered. He emphasized that the scholarships and resources were just the beginning, a small step toward leveling the playing field. When he finished, the room erupted in applause. Mia, sitting in the front row, wiped away tears. Barron stepped down from the stage, shaking hands and listening to the stories of those who had come to support the initiative. The journey ahead. As the event concluded, Barron realized this was just the beginning of a long journey. The Open Future Project had gained momentum, but there was still much work to be done. He knew the road ahead would be filled with challenges, but he was ready. This wasn't about proving himself. It wasn't about his name or the legacy he carried. It was about creating a new legacy, one built on compassion, resilience, and the unwavering belief that every child deserved a chance to dream, to grow, and to thrive. And as Barron watched Mia and the other students leave the event, their faces glowing with hope, he knew he was exactly where he needed to be. A voice for the voiceless. The buzz of the inaugural event lingered in Barron Trump's mind as he sat in the quiet of his apartment later that night. The success of the Open Future Project's launch had been more than he could have hoped for. The stories he had heard, the passion in the eyes of the students, and the support from the community had solidified his resolve. Yet Barron knew this was only the beginning. The road ahead would demand more than public speeches and viral posts. It would require sustained action, strategic planning, and the courage to face resistance. An unexpected call. The following morning, Barron's phone rang just as he was preparing for a meeting with Emily. The caller ID displayed an unfamiliar number. He hesitated before answering. "Hello, Mr. Trump." The voice on the other end was gravelly but warm. "This is Dr. Elaine Roberts, principal of Lincoln High School. I believe you've been in touch with one of our students, Mia Rodriguez." Barron sat up straighter. "Yes, I have. Mia's story really resonated with me. She's an incredible young woman." Dr. Roberts chuckled. "That she is. I'm calling because Mia showed me the message you sent her, and I wanted to thank you. It meant a lot to her, and to all of us here at Lincoln." Barron felt a flush of gratitude. "That's kind of you to say, but Mia's the one who deserves the credit. She's the reason I'm inspired to do this work." "Well," Dr. Roberts continued, her tone growing serious, "if you're serious about making an impact, I'd like to invite you to visit Lincoln High. We're hosting a community forum next week, and I think it could be a powerful opportunity for you to connect with the students and families you're trying to help." Barron didn't hesitate. "I'd be honored." A hard reality. A week later, Barron found himself walking the worn halls of Lincoln High School. The building bore the scars of years of underfunding, chipped paint, outdated equipment, and overcrowded classrooms. Yet, the energy of the students was palpable. Their voices echoed through the halls, filled with laughter, frustration, and the unmistakable hunger for a better future. Dr. Roberts met him at the entrance, her firm handshake belying the warmth in her eyes. "Welcome to Lincoln," she said. "It's not much, but it's ours." "It's more than enough," Barron replied sincerely. As they walked through the school, Dr. Roberts pointed out the challenges they faced: a lack of resources, underpaid teachers, and students struggling to balance academics with the harsh realities of their lives. Barron listened intently, his heart heavy, but his resolve growing. The community forum was held in the school's small auditorium, which was packed to capacity. Parents, teachers, and students filled every seat, their eyes fixed on the stage where Barron sat alongside Dr. Roberts and other local leaders. When it was his turn to speak, Barron rose, his tall frame commanding attention. The room fell silent. "Thank you for welcoming me into your school and your community," he began. "I stand before you not as someone who claims to have all the answers, but as someone who wants to listen, to learn, and to help." He spoke about his journey, the challenges he had faced in stepping out of his family's shadow, and the moment that had inspired the Open Future Project. He emphasized that his goal was not to impose solutions, but to empower communities to create their own. When he finished, the room erupted into applause. But it wasn't the applause that moved him. It was the questions that followed. Parents asked about scholarship opportunities, teachers inquired about professional development, and students shared their dreams and fears. One student, a boy named Javier, stood up. "How do we know this isn't just a one-time thing?" he asked, his voice tinged with skepticism. "How do we know you won't forget about us once the cameras stop rolling?" Barron met Javier's gaze. "That's a fair question," he said. "And the answer is, you don't. Not yet. Trust isn't something I can ask for. It's something I have to earn. All I can promise is that I'm here for the long haul. I won't forget." Javier nodded, and Barron saw a flicker of hope in his eyes. It was enough. Building bridges. The visit to Lincoln High reignited Barron's commitment to the Open Future Project. Over the next few weeks, he and Emily worked tirelessly to expand its reach. They partnered with local organizations to provide after-school programs, secured funding for updated classroom materials, and launched a mentorship program connecting students with professionals in various fields. Barron also began reaching out to other communities, emphasizing that the Open Future Project wasn't just about one school or one city. It was about creating a network of support for underprivileged students nationwide. His efforts drew both praise and criticism, but he remained focused on the work. A national spotlight. As the project grew, so did the attention it received. Major news outlets began covering Barron's efforts, framing him as a young leader defying expectations. Interviews and public appearances became a regular part of his schedule, though he remained wary of the spotlight. During one such interview, a journalist asked, "Barron, some people say you're trying to distance yourself from your family's legacy. Is that true?" Barron paused, choosing his words carefully. "My family's legacy is a part of who I am, but it doesn't define me. What defines me are my choices, my actions, and the values I stand for. This project isn't about distancing myself from anything. It's about standing up for something." The response went viral, solidifying his image as a young man determined to forge his own path. Setbacks and lessons. Despite the progress, there were setbacks. A planned fundraiser fell through when a major sponsor pulled out, citing concerns over public backlash. Another school partnership dissolved due to internal disagreements. Critics grew louder, accusing Barron of using philanthropy as a shield for privilege. These moments tested Barron's resolve, but they also taught him valuable lessons about perseverance and adaptability. Emily became a crucial sounding board, reminding him that meaningful change was never easy or linear. A milestone achievement. 6 months after the launch of the Open Future Project, Barron and Emily held a press conference to announce a major milestone: the creation of 500 scholarships for underprivileged students across the country. Each scholarship would cover not only tuition but also books, transportation, and other essential expenses. Standing before a crowd of journalists, donors, and beneficiaries, Barron felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was why he had stayed in the rain, why he had faced criticism, and why he had refused to give up. As he looked out at the audience, his eyes met Mia's. She was seated in the front row, her face beaming with pride. In that moment, Barron realized that the journey wasn't just about helping others. It was about becoming the person he had always aspired to be. The journey continues. The press conference marked a turning point for the Open Future Project, but Barron knew there was still much work to be done. He and Emily began planning the next phase, expanding the project internationally, advocating for educational reform, and creating a mentorship network that would connect students with leaders in their communities. Barron's path was far from easy, but he embraced every challenge with the same determination that had carried him through that rainy day outside the corporate headquarters. He had found his purpose, and he was ready to keep fighting, not for recognition, but for the countless voices that deserved to be heard. The rising tide. The success of the Open Future Project's initial milestones catapulted Barron Trump into a new realm of responsibility. The media had shifted from skepticism to cautious admiration, while critics continued to scrutinize his every move. Yet, Barron remained focused. His vision extended far beyond scholarships and donations. He wanted to address systemic barriers in education that perpetuated inequality. It was a lofty goal, but one he was determined to pursue. The unseen costs of change. Barron sat in the bustling office of the Open Future Project's headquarters, a converted warehouse in Brooklyn. Papers were strewn across his desk: proposals, partnership agreements, and financial reports. Across from him, Emily Carter paced back and forth, her tablet in hand. "Barron, we're stretched thin," she said, her voice laced with concern. "The scholarships, mentorship programs, community workshops, It's all amazing, but the funding isn't keeping pace with the demand. Barron leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. I know. We've been leaning heavily on donations, but it's not sustainable. We need to find other revenue streams. Emily nodded. I've been thinking about that. What if we launched a series of educational products? Online courses, skill-building workshops, even corporate training programs. The proceeds could go directly back into the project. Barron considered her suggestion. It was a bold idea, one that could potentially secure long-term funding while also expanding their reach. Let's explore it, he said. But I want to make sure it stays affordable. Accessibility is non-negotiable. Emily smiled. I wouldn't expect anything less. Resistance from within. As the Open Future project grew, so did its challenges. One of the most unexpected hurdles came from within the communities Barron aimed to serve. During a town hall meeting in Chicago, a local activist named Marcus Green voiced concerns about the initiative. With all due respect, Mr. Trump, Marcus began, I appreciate what you're trying to do. But how do we know this isn't just another outsider trying to fix us without understanding what we really need? The room fell silent. Barron stood, his tall frame commanding attention, but his voice was calm and measured. That's a valid question, Marcus, he said, and it's one I've asked myself repeatedly. The truth is, I don't have all the answers. That's why I rely on people like you, leaders who understand their communities better than I ever could. He paused, scanning the room. The Open Future project isn't about me swooping in to solve problems. It's about partnering with communities, listening to their needs, and empowering them to create their own solutions. If we're falling short, I want to know. That's the only way we can grow. Marcus nodded, his expression softening. Fair enough. Let's see what you're made of. A global reach. As months turned into a year, the Open Future project began expanding internationally. Emily spearheaded collaborations with NGOs in South America, Africa, and Southeast Asia. The goal was to replicate the project's model while adapting it to the unique challenges of each region. Barron traveled extensively, meeting with educators, students, and local leaders. In a remote village in Kenya, he sat under a baobab tree with a group of children, listening to their dreams of becoming doctors, engineers, and artists. Their aspirations reminded him why he had started this journey. During a visit to a struggling school in Brazil, Barron met Sophia, a 12-year-old girl who dreamed of becoming a teacher. Her family lived in extreme poverty, and her school lacked basic supplies. Barron promised Sophia he would do everything in his power to support her education. Do you really mean it? Sophia asked, her eyes wide with hope. Barron crouched to her level, meeting her gaze. I promise. Not just to you, but to every student like you. The price of leadership. The growing demands of the Open Future project began to take a toll on Barron. Late nights, constant travel, and unrelenting scrutiny left him physically and emotionally drained. His personal life suffered. He missed family gatherings, lost touch with friends, and found little time for himself. One evening, Emily confronted him. Barron, you're burning out, she said bluntly. You can't help anyone if you're running on empty. Barron sighed, leaning against his desk. I can't slow down, Emily. There's too much at stake. You're not a machine, she replied. Even you need rest. Delegating isn't a weakness. It's smart leadership. Reluctantly, Barron agreed to take a step back from day-to-day operations, allowing Emily and their growing team to shoulder more responsibility. It was a difficult adjustment, but it gave him the breathing room he desperately needed. A major victory. Despite the challenges, the Open Future project achieved a major victory when it partnered with a tech giant to launch a groundbreaking initiative, the Digital Bridge Program. The program provided underprivileged students with laptops, internet access, and online learning tools. The launch event was held in New York City, drawing media attention and praise from global leaders. Barron took the stage, his speech both humble and passionate. This isn't just about technology, he said. It's about leveling the playing field. It's about giving every child, no matter where they come from, a chance to compete in a digital world. As the audience applauded, Barron looked out at the crowd and saw Mia and Javier in the front row, their faces beaming with pride. In that moment, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The ripple effect. The Digital Bridge program became a game changer, transforming the lives of thousands of students. Schools reported increased engagement, higher test scores, and renewed hope among their communities. Stories poured in from families whose children had gone from struggling to excelling, thanks to the resources provided by the program. Barron, however, refused to rest on his laurels. "This is just one step," he told Emily during a late-night meeting. "There's still so much work to do." Emily smiled. "And you're the right person to lead it." A defining moment. Barron's efforts culminated in an invitation to speak at the United Nations Global Education Summit. The opportunity was a testament to how far the Open Future project had come, but it also carried immense pressure. Standing before world leaders, educators, and activists, Barron delivered a powerful speech. He spoke about the universal importance of education, the barriers that millions of children faced, and the role that governments, corporations, and individuals could play in creating change. "We are not just building schools or creating programs," he said. "We are building futures. We are planting seeds of hope in places where hope is scarce. And we cannot stop until every child, in every corner of the world, has the opportunity to thrive." The room erupted into a standing ovation, and for the first time, Barron allowed himself to feel the weight of what he had accomplished. The journey continues. As Barron left the summit, he knew the work was far from over. The Open Future project had grown into a global movement, but its mission remained the same: to empower students, challenge systems, and create opportunities where there were none. The tide was rising, and Barron was ready to meet it, not as the son of a famous family, but as a leader who had chosen to stand for something greater than himself. The journey ahead would be long, but he welcomed it with open arms and an unwavering belief in the power of education to change the world.